I'm living my best life and that's what matters. You should do the same. Do things that make you happy. Make friends with all kinds of people. Get some white friends too. I don't just share black secrets. I share white secrets as well because we're all family. Katt Williams was once known as an amazing stand-up comedian. He could light up a whole stage with just a look, a pause, or a really good joke. He sold out huge shows, made comedy specials that millions of people watched, and became a voice for the black community like nobody else. But behind all that fame, there was another story. A story of feeling alone, fighting battles in the entertainment world, and dealing with people who hurt him. Among all the problems, stolen jokes, and betrayals, there was one person who made Katt angrier than anyone else. Who was that person? And why did they hurt Katt so much? Let's find out. The tough childhood that made him strong. Not many people know that behind Katt Williams' sharp look and super confident attitude is a childhood full of pain. When Katt talks about those early years, it feels like opening a door to a dark room where every sound reminds you of old hurts. But those hard times helped create one of the most powerful and unique voices in American comedy. Katt was born in 1971 in Cincinnati, Ohio. He grew up in a smart but very strict family where getting good grades wasn't something to celebrate, it was just expected. From a young age, Katt was super smart. His IQ was 158, which is extremely rare. Psychologists said with the right help, this kid could have gone to college really early. But being a genius isn't always a good thing. In Katt's home, it just meant people expected even more from him and got disappointed faster when he didn't follow their rules. Katt says his parents loved him by setting the bar high so he could reach it, but what he felt was coldness. When he got a perfect score on a test, his dad just nodded like it was no big deal. When he said he wanted to do art, the whole house went silent. Nobody yelled or hit him, but their disappointed faces told him everything. He had done something wrong, and as those feelings piled up year after year, they left a crack in his heart. Teachers said Katt was so fast at learning, they had to give him extra work just to keep him busy. But many adults saw him as a troublesome kid. The boy is too smart, and he knows it, one teacher remembered. In a world that wanted everything to follow rules, a kid with wild creativity and super intelligence was seen as a problem, not a gift. During high school, Katt got a scholarship that could have changed his whole life, a ticket to a serious academic future. But the problems at home got worse, and he didn't want to live the life others had planned for him. Even worse, his family never talked about problems. They just stayed silent and distant. When Katt refused to follow their path, the scholarship disappeared. The sound of that door closing became a memory he would later joke about on stage, but with real bitterness. Then, at an age when most kids are still figuring out homework, Katt made a huge decision. He legally separated from his family around age 13 or 14. It wasn't a kid's choice. It was the choice of someone who felt pushed out of his own home. In an interview later, he said, "I didn't run away. I just went looking for a place where I didn't need permission to be myself." But freedom came with a huge price. No family, no home, no money. Katt stepped into years he called learning from the streets. He slept in parks, ate cheap noodles for days, and took any job he could find, wiping tables, washing cars, selling stuff, just to buy food. Friends from that time said even though he was broke, Katt protected one thing like treasure, his pride. He never begged, never accepted pity, and never bowed down to anyone's meanness. During those hard years, Katt's sense of self turned into armor. When nobody protects you but yourself, you learn to never show weakness. He carried the wound of being left behind his whole youth, and it became the force that pushed him to never let anyone ignore his talent. Life on the streets also gave Katt another lesson: observation. The once gifted child started storing every type of person, every voice, every movement in his mind. This became endless material for his sharp, street-style comedy. But back then, Katt didn't know he was collecting weapons. He was just surviving. From the streets to the stage. Nobody expected a homeless teenager who slept in parks to become one of the sharpest voices in American comedy. But for Katt Williams, that rise had nothing to do with luck. It came from hundreds of nights standing by the back doors of comedy clubs, staring at the stage like it was the only way out of his trapped life. When he had no money for a ticket, Katt snuck in through kitchen doors, jumped fences, or waited until someone opened the door to deliver drinks and slipped in behind them. He sat in the back, studying every laugh, every pause, every failure. And most importantly, he listened to how people reacted to truth. The first time Katt stood on stage, he had nothing but pure courage. There was no big introduction, no scheduled time slot, just a random kid the club owner let try for 5 minutes. But those 5 minutes made the whole room look at each other like, what just happened? Katt didn't just tell stories. He threw razor-sharp thoughts into people's minds, changing his voice, rhythm, and emotion instantly. His small body, just over 5 feet 5 inches, suddenly became a weapon because he made people forget about size and remember energy. News spread fast. Soon he was invited to perform more in Oakland, Atlanta, Jacksonville, anywhere with a microphone. Katt tried it. Nobody told him to change, and he never tried to fit in. From the start, he created what would become his signature look. Shiny suits, straight-pressed hair, swagger like a character from a 90s hip-hop album, and his comedy matched fast, street-smart, and aimed straight at topics nobody else touched. Police, racism, city violence, relationships, black politics. It was material the mainstream avoided, but underground audiences worshipped. Katt's first big break came through Bet's Comic View, a launching pad for many black comedians. In every episode he appeared in, Katt was never the safe one. He roasted singers, rappers, CEOs, even the show's hosts, anyone within range. And the audience loved him for it. Comic View didn't make him a star overnight, but it made him a name every club wanted. Then came Def Comedy Jam, where legends once stood: Martin Lawrence, Bernie Mac, Chris Tucker, Dave Chappelle. If Comic View was the gateway, Def Comedy Jam was the battlefield. And Katt walked onto it like he was born for it. He talked about drugs, street arguments, the unwritten rules of the hood, the craziness of black life, everything exaggerated just enough to make crowds howl with laughter. He was too real to compare, too intense to put in a box. His persona, a philosopher pimp, became a cultural mini-phenomenon. He spoke like a hustler but carried sharp intelligence that trapped audiences into laughing at their own realizations. That persona led to his breakout role, Money Mike in Friday After Next 2002. Though a supporting character, Money Mike became a hip-hop cult icon, a tiny, fearless character with bleached hair and a mouth that feared no one. The film made over $33 million, but within the black community, its value was way bigger because it made Katt Williams' name explode. From there, he released a streak of stand-up specials. The peak was The Pimp Chronicles Part 1, 2006. A clip from that special, his famous, "This is not weed, this is death," became a meme before social media even took off. His ability to jump from one emotion to another in half a second made him one of the few comedians who could perform with both body and mind. His next special, It's Pimpin', 2008, cemented his status as the man who told truth in ways nobody else dared. His 2007 tour sold over 2 million tickets, making him one of the highest-grossing stand-ups of the decade. But despite huge success, Katt never quite crossed into mainstream Hollywood the way studios hoped, partly because his style was too sharp, too real, too uncontrollable, partly because he refused to soften himself. While studios searched for comedians who could play lovable dads or friendly neighbors, Katt stood on the opposite end. He was the guy who would rip apart every stereotype and say the things Hollywood wanted buried. And for that reason, even at his peak, Hollywood hesitated to put him in major projects. He wasn't a safe bet like Kevin Hart later became. He wasn't a friendly star, nor someone they could control with contracts and public relations. But none of that slowed Katt. The truth is, he didn't need Hollywood to become a legend. Each time he stepped on stage, each time he made audiences scream with laughter, each time he created a line that became cultural currency, he proved that his path wasn't unusual. It was setting a new standard, one Hollywood would eventually have to recognize, even if they never admitted it. When your work gets stolen right before your eyes. Success didn't come to Katt Williams through open doors. It came through cracks he had to pry open himself. And for that reason, the moments when his work was stolen from him, not because he lacked talent, but because people thought he was too small for anyone to care, became the deepest wounds of his career. Among all the stories Katt has told, none hurt him more than the joke theft tied to the name Cedric the Entertainer, one of the icons of the original Kings of Comedy. According to Katt, it was simple. Years earlier, Cedric came to a small show where Katt was trying out new material. Cedric complimented him afterward. Smart joke, good rhythm, sharp topic. For a young comedian who was still crashing on friends' couches, that praise felt like a blessing from a respected elder in the craft. And then Katt said he saw that very joke, almost unchanged, appear in The Kings of Comedy 2000, the film capturing the era's greatest black comedians. Katt remembered sitting in the theater watching the screen, only to hear his own joke echo through the speakers. But the man on stage wasn't him. The name receiving applause wasn't his. The spotlight was shining on someone else. If you've ever created something from your own blood, thought, and pain, you know that feeling, like standing outside your own house, watching someone else live in it, and the crowd giving them the keys. Katt didn't just lose a joke. He believed he lost a moment that could have lifted him into the ranks of the kings. In a profession where one unforgettable bit can change an entire life, that event felt like having the path to the throne stolen before he even set foot on the first step. Cedric later denied taking the joke, but for Katt, the truth wasn't in the explanation. It was in the feeling of being left behind. He said, "I wasn't too big for someone to steal from. I was just too small for them to think it mattered." And it didn't stop with Cedric. Katt's career later absorbed invisible and visible blows from colleagues he once tried to keep peace with. Some comedians called Katt difficult, unstable, out of control. Media outlets painted him as erratic, troubled, hard to work with. From 2008 to 2014, many articles repeated the same message. Katt Williams is sabotaging his own career. But people closer to him told a different story. Katt often felt creatively stripped, left out of meetings, edited until he was no longer himself in many projects. For someone whose huge pride was built from years of surviving the streets, any sign of disrespect became the spark that burned entire bridges. Many colleagues said he was self-destructive, but nobody asked the more important question: what destroyed him first? To Katt, the stage was the only place he was in control. Beyond the lights, he had no parents to cushion him, no Hollywood machine to protect him, no studio backing him. So when he was labeled mentally unstable, he saw it as the cruelest kind of attack, a way to make invalid all the years of real effort he had poured in. He once said, "I'm the only normal person in a room full of people pretending." A line that's funny, true, and accusing all at once. Enemy number one, Kevin Hart. If Cedric the Entertainer was the first cut, then Kevin Hart was the knife that never came out. To many audiences, the two are simply big black comedians with different styles. But in Katt Williams' story, Kevin Hart is not just a successful colleague. He is the symbol of what Katt hates most: Hollywood's favoritism toward artists who know how to behave at the right time. Katt once said bluntly, "Hollywood chose Kevin, not the audience." A sentence filled with the bitterness of someone who believes the system crowned its winner before the competition even began. What frustrates Katt most isn't that Kevin is successful, it's how he became successful. Because in almost every way, Kevin Hart is the mirror opposite of Katt Williams. Small, lovable, charming, easy to market, easy to sell to every audience. Hollywood saw in Kevin the perfect product, black enough to represent but safe enough to avoid controversy. And Katt, he was too real, too direct, too sharp, too uncontrollable. To the industry, Kevin Hart was the favorite son. Katt was the outsider. And then the backstage stories began, told by Katt himself. He said many major film scripts were first offered to him. Supporting comic roles, the best friend character, the funny guy in a family movie. Scripts like The 40-Year-Old Virgin, Soul Plane, Scary Movie 3, and even some sitcom projects were at one point presented to Katt. But he refused them, not because he didn't want to be on the big screen, but because he refused to play stereotypical characters just to sell tickets. "The script disrespected the audience," Katt once said. "I'm not lowering my standards for a role." The problem was this: while Katt rejected roles for artistic reasons, Hollywood didn't see dignity. Hollywood saw difficult to work with. And so the cycle began. A script Katt rejected would coincidentally end up in Kevin Hart's hands. A sitcom that didn't pick Katt would suddenly schedule a meeting with Kevin. A role Katt declined because he felt disrespected would become the launching pad that made Kevin a future $4.2 billion box office titan. To Katt, it felt like watching his life played by a more digestible version of himself, and it made him furious. On one podcast, Katt said bluntly, "You can't call someone self-made when they never walked our path. They just signed the papers while the rest was arranged for them." Katt believes Kevin Hart never went through the brutality of the comedy underground, the tiny clubs, the hecklers, the low-paid cross-country gigs. He believes Kevin was placed in position, lifted by the invisible system that shapes mainstream culture. And the bitterness only grew when the media began comparing Kevin to legends: the next Eddie Murphy, the new face of black comedy, titles that should come after decades of contribution. But Kevin received them after just a few box office hits. In a controversial interview, Katt said the line that made Hollywood explode: "I don't hate Kevin Hart. I hate the system that created him." But that was before Katt felt replaced. He believes that without the wound from Cedric, without the scandal-driven media frenzy, without Hollywood's manipulation, the top black box office comedian of the 2010s should have been him, not Kevin. "Kevin is the chosen one," Katt said, "and I'm the one who has to fight." When a person carries both genius and pain, the feeling of being replaced doesn't just wound the career, it wounds the identity. To understand the silent war between Katt and Kevin, you must look at what Katt believes he lost: the chance to become an icon, a king of black comedy, a title he believes he deserved more than anyone of his era. And for Katt Williams, nothing hurts more than watching someone else live the life he once dreamed of, especially when he believes that life was originally written for him. The public war, when the beef hit national TV. It wasn't the joke theft. It wasn't the press calling him difficult. It was the silent war with Kevin Hart that pushed Katt Williams into the deepest chaos of his career. Everything exploded from a tiny spark: an interview where Katt criticized Tiffany Haddish, the breakout star of Girls Trip, who was heavily supported by Kevin Hart. He didn't attack Tiffany's talent directly, but argued that she hadn't proven her stand-up ability, that she was chosen before she had worked to show, and that Hollywood was engineering a fake version of success. Those words were like firing straight at Kevin's fortress. He had long seen himself as Tiffany's champion, as a positive voice creating opportunities for black artists. Kevin responded immediately, and not behind the scenes. He chose The Breakfast Club, the most influential morning talk show in America, as the battleground. From the very first minute, Kevin didn't use anger. He used disappointment, the emotion that cuts deeper than rage. He listed every major opportunity Katt had been given: mid-budget films, special deals, tour with big marketing budgets. Yet, according to Kevin, Katt ruined them by skipping interviews, arriving late, or refusing to cooperate with promotion teams. Kevin spoke slowly, almost like reading a formal accusation. Nobody shut doors on you. You closed them yourself. The final question was the fatal blow. When are you going to look in the mirror and take responsibility? When are you going to stop blaming Hollywood? It was one of the rare moments in American comedy history where one entertainer exposed another on national broadcast using facts, not feelings. And equally rare was seeing someone like Kevin, whose brand relied on being clean and friendly, lay out the complete history of Katt's failures. The impact was immediate. Within hours, Twitter and Instagram flooded with clips from the show. To many, this was the final verdict in a years-long debate. Katt Williams wasn't a victim of the system, but a victim of himself. But the story didn't end so neatly. The next day, Katt appeared on several shows, apologized to Tiffany Haddish, and admitted he had gone too far. He arrived at an Atlanta radio station with a large gift bag for Tiffany, hugged her on camera, a public attempt to cool the flames. For a moment, it seemed Katt truly wanted to end the fight. But anyone who had followed him long enough understood, apologizing to Tiffany did not mean forgiving Kevin. In Katt's mind, Kevin had always been the symbol of the system, the man who benefited from doors Katt believed he should have walked through first. The feud didn't cool, it just went quiet. 3 years later, in 2024, during his appearance on the viral podcast club Shay Shay, Shannon Sharpe's media juggernaut with tens of millions of views per episode, Katt finally did what everyone knew was inevitable. He reopened the entire conflict. No dodging, no softening. He laid out every detail he believed proved Kevin had been favored, from scripts that were originally sent to him before being redirected to Kevin becoming the chosen face to bring black comedy into the mainstream. The tone wasn't explosive anger, but the cold calm of someone convinced he'd been shut out of the feast. Katt accused gatekeepers, power brokers in the industry, of selecting Kevin as the representative for a safe version of black comedy. He claimed Kevin avoids confrontation, that Kevin knew the two of them needed a face-to-face conversation but never showed up. Notably, Shannon Sharpe didn't push back. He just let Katt talk, turning the entire interview into a kind of extended confession never before seen in the media. The internet split into two camps. One side believed Katt was telling the hard truth, calling out Hollywood's long-standing favoritism. The other side believed Katt was using the past to excuse personal failures, and that Kevin Hart didn't deserve to be the target of his anger. But whether people loved or hated him, nobody could deny one thing: no one tells their own story with the force that Katt Williams does. No one stands before millions willing to risk everything just to say, "I'm not crazy. I was betrayed." That conviction turned the feud between Katt and Kevin into one of the most iconic clashes in modern American comedy, not because of insults, but because it forced uncomfortable questions into the open. Who really decides who gets to shine? Who is the victim? Who is the winner? And is today's winner triumphant because of talent or because of a system behind them? In that battlefield, the spotlight no longer shone on the laughter. It shone directly on wounds that had never healed. And that was the most painful part of all. Self-destruction and being shut out of Hollywood. While the public fight was still going on, Katt Williams' real life spiraled into darkness that even those closest to him couldn't pull him out of. It was no longer about lost opportunities or being abandoned by the system. This time was marked by acts of self-destruction, public, repeated, and cascading like a chain reaction without breaks. Within just a few years, his name made headlines not for a new special or a sold-out tour, but for incidents nobody imagined a one-stop comedian could fall into. He fought strangers on the street over teasing remarks, got into high-speed chases with police, and was even filmed fighting with a teenage boy, a clip that spread so fast it turned him into a nationwide joke. Once viewed as a street genius of stand-up, Katt suddenly became material for late-night shows. Those who once called him a secret weapon of American comedy now called him a living meme. It was a free fall in full daylight, witnessed by millions. The worst moment, however, had nothing to do with his career. At one point, Katt was arrested for allegedly creating an unsafe environment for his children. The news hit like a blade cutting through the fragile remains of his private life. His kids were taken into protective custody. Just a few lines in a police report were enough to collapse him. This wasn't a showbiz scandal. This was a direct attack on the one part of his life he had left: family. The media exploited it as if it were final proof that Katt had lost control, while social networks turned his pain into memes, edits, and jokes. As the public enjoyed the chaos, Hollywood quietly crossed his name out. Ongoing projects were canceled. Contracts disappeared. Production companies began marking him with the label no actor ever wants: unreliable. In an industry where every minute on set equals tens of thousands of dollars, a performer who might cause trouble is a nightmare. Katt knew this, but by then he wasn't stable enough to control himself. Each new incident poured another layer of cement over the door back into the industry, making it heavier and heavier until it could no longer be opened. Nobody stated it outright, but everyone in the industry understood. Katt had been shut out, not by signatures or official bans, but by silence. The kind of silence where phones don't ring, emails don't arrive, and scripts never show up. The stages that once lit up when he walked out were now hesitant, afraid audiences wouldn't come. Directors who once loved his fire turned toward a younger generation, safer, calmer, predictable. For years, his face appeared in the same pattern across the news: mug shots behind jail bars, photos of him in handcuffs being led to a car, grainy phone videos of him shouting something nobody could hear clearly. His name was no longer spoken with respect. He was called unstable, problematic, meltdown. From being one of America's sharpest comedic minds, Katt became a cautionary tale. Talent cannot save you from yourself. Yet amid the chaos, something strange continued. Every time people thought he had hit rock bottom, he would show up somewhere, on a small stage, in a short clip, talking to fans outside a club with the same old fire still burning. But Hollywood didn't see that. They only saw the trail of trouble, and in their eyes, Katt Williams was no longer an artist. He was a risk too dangerous to bet on. When the doors of fame slammed shut, what remained was the twisted image the media plastered over his life. An image he didn't create, but one the entire country believed to be real. And hovering inside that chaos was a question nobody dared answer. Did Katt push himself into the darkness, or did Hollywood find a small flaw and blow it up into a sentence? The answer, like everything in Katt Williams' life, has never been simple. But one truth stands: This was the time when he drowned in the fiercest storm of his life, and the time when the world began to forget that beneath the wreckage once lived a genius. The journey back, finding the light again. At a time when many believed Katt Williams had been permanently swept off the showbiz map, something unexpected happened. He began to slow down. No more sudden outbursts. No more charging into conflict like a survival reflex. Katt appeared with a strange calmness, as if he had seen the bottom of the pit and decided he would never return there again. His public apology to Tiffany Haddish was the clearest signal. For the first time in years, he admitted he was wrong, admitted he had behaved badly, and that apology stunned the public. Katt was never known for backing down. When he accepted the role of Alligator Man in Season 2 of Atlanta 2018, many assumed it was just a small part, a reluctant experiment for a once-disgraced actor. But on screen, Katt delivered something entirely different. No showmanship, no exaggeration, just depth, sadness, and layers, like the man he was in real life. The character Alligator Man, a chaotic, lonely man who always felt misunderstood by the world, was almost a perfect mirror of Katt's own mind. When the episode aired, audiences were stunned. Critics wrote reviews Katt thought he would never read again. And then the unimaginable happened. He won the Emmy for Outstanding Guest Actor in a Comedy Series. An artist once rejected by Hollywood now stood on stage, accepting an award from the very industry that had declared him unworthy. It wasn't just a professional victory. It was proof that true talent cannot stay buried forever. From that moment, the road back began to open. Katt returned to stand-up, the place where he truly belonged, with the energy of someone who had survived hell. He produced new specials, and audiences still showed up in full force. He appeared in the upshows and received praise from colleagues who had once assumed he was finished. His fans, who had never abandoned him, saw his comeback as a gift. They no longer saw the scandals. They saw the artist who once made them laugh until they cried, now standing tall again. And Katt, though more reserved than before, held on to one thing unchanged: his pride in the path he chose. He never sold his soul, never lowered his standards to please Hollywood, or accepted roles he felt insulted his intelligence. He always believed authenticity has a price, and he paid that price with his career, his reputation, and even the peace of his private life. But now, with the darkness finally lifting a little, Katt can see what he still has: dignity, talent, and the support of audiences who understand he was never the madman the media portrayed. He stands before the public not to justify himself, but to reaffirm something he has carried all his life. He would rather lose everything than lose himself. And it is that unwavering belief, sometimes painful, always honest, that became the light guiding Katt Williams back upstream. If you want to continue exploring the stories behind the spotlight, the secrets, the rivalries, the struggles, and the greatest moments of showbiz legends, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell.